Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj, and today we have Alan Lazaros with us. Welcome to the show, Alan.
First of all, Genius Talk. I am so excited. I really appreciate it. And I remember what it was like 10 years ago when no one wanted to hear from me. So I remember when it was crickets, and now I'm very much overwhelmed. I tell my business partner I'm drowning in opportunity, and I'm trying to get to the point where I'm swimming in opportunity instead of drowning. But thank you for having me. Thank you for being graceful that I was late, and we'll rock and roll.
Awesome. Can you talk about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so at this stage, I can sort of sum up what I do in one sentence. I am here to reach my full potential and help others do the same in fitness, personal development, and business through the vehicles of coaching, training, and podcasting. That's my sort of one sentence that encapsulates all of what I do now, and I help my clients create their sort of one sentence, and that way you know how to be discerning of what to say yes to and what to say no to. So coaching, training, and podcasting are the three vehicles that I do. So it's one-to-one, which is coaching, one-to-several, which is trainings, I give trainings, and then one-to-scale is podcasting, which is a really cool medium. So that's kind of what I do now, and it's been a long journey to lead up to that point. I definitely did not start there. And if you want me to go into a little bit of my backstory, I can do that as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so the shortest possible version, because I know we got a short form episode here, but for those of you who don't know, my story started out 2 years old in very tragic. My dad died in a car when he was 28 when I was 2. This is in 1991, and my real last name is actually McCorkle. It was John McCorkle was my dad. He was part of a big Irish Catholic family. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. Born and raised in Massachusetts, and suddenly he died in a car in 1991 at 28 years old when I was 2. I had an older sister who was 31, older sister who's 6. My mom was 31, I'm sorry. Everything's numbers for me. My stepdad came into the picture. That's why my last name is Lazaros. As a matter of fact, a lot of people who are Greek, they look at me and they go, Lazarus? Because apparently that's a very Greek last name. And there's not a lot of blonde-haired, blue-eyed Lazaruses, I guess. But I took his last name around age 7. He left my family when I was 14. And we didn't associate much with the McCorkles anymore because we were trying to be sort of the Lazaruses. And then that same year, my mom got in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and we got sort of ostracized from her side of the family. So in a long story, as short as possible, I kind of lost 3 families by the time I was 14 years old. It was just me and my mom after that point. My sister had moved out, and I became this sort of, on one end, I had abandonment challenges, and I became this sort of chameleon, fit in. And on the other hand, I became this sort of super achiever who was just prove myself. It was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Because when my stepdad left, he took 95% of the income with him. And we went from boats and ski trips in the dot-com bubble in the 90s to now I get free lunch at school because our income is so low. I don't know how I'm going to go to college. We don't have cable, that kind of thing. Again, we weren't going to starve, but it was not good. And my dream was to go to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, an engineering school, and it was $50,000 a year back then. So I had to bootstrap my way, get all the scholarships and financial aid I could, straight A's through all of high school, got my computer engineering degree at WPI, got my master's in business, and then it was off to the races. Ultimately, at 14, that was the turning point for me where I looked into the future and I saw, okay, no trust fund, no generational wealth, no dad. We're in some trouble here. And if it's going to be, it's up to me. And so it's interesting for me at this stage we've had a lot of success. I'm very, very grateful. But a lot of people see me as sort of a silver spooner, someone who was born on third base. And I playfully joke, I say I couldn't even see the ballpark. And so, yeah, your adversity can be your advantage if you believe in yourself and, aim higher, work harder, and get smarter. And so that's ultimately my story. And now I started a podcast 8 years ago. It was called the Hyperconscious Podcast. Now it's called Next Level University, 18-person team, 23 one-on-one business clients. We work with 112 podcasters and business owners now. We have over 2,000 episodes. So I started in this personal development space 10 years ago after a car accident that I got into. Last piece of the story. I was 26. I was very successful in corporate at this point. I got into a car accident, head-on collision, my fault. And this was sort of my wake-up call, the second chance my birth father never got, because he died in a car when he was 28. and I'm very, very lucky to be alive. Thank you, Volkswagen. I had this Volkswagen Passat that the airbags deployed, and I used to call it the tank. And that's sort of the second chance. That was my second chance. So that was 10 years ago. I'm 36 now. I always joke, I'm hoping to hit puberty at 37. But ultimately, 10 years ago, I think some people have a job, some people have a career, and some people have a calling. I found my calling at 26. And my calling is what I opened with, which is that one sentence of helping people reach their full potential.
Like, how do you get to the point that you decided that I was going to help people reach their full potential?
I think it's one of those dualities of I found it and it found me. So on one side of the coin, I am just always drawn to it. So if you and I were friends in middle school or high school, it was goals and dreams, always. Every conversation was somehow goals and dreams oriented. And back when I was a kid, I thought everybody had big goals and dreams, when in reality, I now realize in hindsight, they had goals and dreams because I always wanted to talk about it. I was always very future oriented. I was on a podcast earlier today with Kevin, and I was talking about how, you should start thinking about your career from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That's your career. And he's like, wait a minute, 10? You think people should think about their career at 10? And I said, yeah, you should. Whether or not you will is another story. But as someone who is this sort of weird, esoteric, existential, future-oriented guy, I had two career paths that I was going to do. I had a bunch of dreams, but these were the two main ones. It was going to be lawyer, politician, president, or it was going to be engineering, MBA, CEO, like my hero at the time, Steve Jobs. So I built my first computer when I was 12. I used to argue who was smarter, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I used to think it was Bill. Now I think it's Steve. Ultimately, I was just that weird kid, man. And you don't realize how weird you are until you get older, and you realize oh, this is not normal at all. Like, no one at 12 is thinking about being a CEO of a Fortune 50 company. And I genuinely was. My buddy Kiki and I, we were going to start a company called LazCore. I'm Alan Lazaros, he's Keith Corton, and we were going to call it LazCore. And so LAZKOER is what it was going to be, because Corton and Lazarus. But now I realize in hindsight how weird all that stuff is. So I don't know if I answered your original question, but I love the Genius Talk thing because people who identify as statistical anomalies have a really hard time in the social world. I was a chameleon and I did everything I could to fit in out of my abandonment challenges, and now I just don't even try because I couldn't fit in if I tried. It's very clear that I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, and when we try to do that, it's like we are just putting a mask.
Yeah. I did it for years, man. And then at 26, I realized that was such a mistake because when I faced mortality, no one was permanently damaged or injured. We were definitely rattled. It was a head-on collision. It was not a fender bender. But that was the second chance my dad never got, and I had all these regrets. Like, I regretted so much of how I lived my life. And people are like, well, no regrets. It's like, listen, I squandered my potential. I'm only firing on one cylinder out of 50. But people don't know that because they're impressed. They think, oh, you did so amazing. And it's like, listen, I got straight A's in high school and I did okay, but I didn't actually have to try that hard. And I tried harder than the average bear, but I definitely wasn't putting it all on the court. And that's just the truth. And now I make sure I don't make that mistake.
And I'm guessing that's why you have an aura ring in your fingers. Is that aura ring?
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, you're very observant. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. So does that help?
That's the best. Yeah, I got a 66 sleep score last night. It wasn't great, but I track all my data. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I was also doing similar thing, but after a few weeks, it was there are too much data. Okay, first data in business, then all the partners thing, and then here in sleep also. For that reason, I have to exclude that.
Brother, I gave a speech at my alma mater, WPI, probably 3 or 4 months ago. It was a business panel, and I know we're talking to business owners, right?
Yeah.
And it was a class of engineers, and this was a business class, kind of their first business class. So I had to kind of take it easy. It's like the first exposure to business. I'm like, rah! But there was these two multimillionaires that were in their 40s and 50s with me, and it was a panel. And I realized during the middle of the panel, I was like, you know what? A lot of this is such fluffy shit. Let's give them real stuff, right? And I turned to these other guys. One of them owned a bunch of Sky Zones. The other one did basically Imagine Waze, but for boats, that kind of thing, patents and all that. So do you know what Waze is?
Waze is which kind of Waze?
YZ. It's a GPS app. I don't know if it's big where you are or not.
Okay, okay. I don't know.
That doesn't matter. Okay, so it's like GPS but for boats. But anyways, so I turn to these guys and I say, all right, hold on. How many spreadsheets do you guys have? And one of the dudes turns to me, he laughs out loud. He goes, Alan, I have 8 open on my computer right now at home. And I said, there we go. Dude, I live in spreadsheets. I live in them. There's data for everything. Everything's by design. And I have a spreadsheet for fitness, sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, supplementation, podcasting, business. Every single client, every single team member, 18-person team, 23 clients. Every single person tracks data. It's called data-driven decision-making. A lot of people make very subjective, emotional decisions. They don't base it on data. I have one client, for example. He's like, well, I don't make enough money. I was like, well, okay. When did you start your company? He said, March. I said, how much have you made since March? He's like, we tracked it, 170,000. I was like, dude, what do you mean you don't make enough money? Where's it all going, right? And well, Google Ads, okay, but you gotta make data-driven decisions. But to your point, too much data is overwhelming. Too little data, and you're just off the rails.
Yeah. By the way, you and your business partner Kevin, how did you guys meet? Because me and Kevin, we had a episode before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He came on Genius Talk.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was good. It was fun.
Nice. Okay, so how did we meet? Kevin and I, so we did the traditional path. I did the traditional path. I did preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, corporate. And then I got in my car accident at 26 years old. Sort of my quarter life existential crisis, turn it all around type of thing, 10 years ago. Kev and I grew up in the same town. I playfully refer to it as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It's a small town, small-minded, and we both grew up without fathers. And we went to the same high school, but we weren't really friends. He didn't like me. He thought I was arrogant. And I thought he was insecure. And I think both were probably true. But we were immature, right? And we didn't have dads, and we had chips on our shoulders, and it was a whole thing. But we reconvened in our 20s. He had a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live was the tagline. And I had a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, which is sort of this idea. My very first company 10 years ago, technically second company 10 years ago, was Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. Good luck getting speeches at high schools and colleges with that tagline, by the way. I wanted to bring personal development to the school systems because I was an academic. Right. Brutal. Oh my God, impossible. Holy crap. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, so I started a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, which was, I tried to think to myself, what made the difference? What made the difference in my life? And I don't believe this anymore now that I've reflected a lot more, but I used to think it was because I had great mentors. I used to think I had great conversations with really smart people. And that's what changed my life because I learned so much, particularly in college. I mean, we were mining for Bitcoin in our dorm room in 2007, right? So I was around geniuses and genuine geniuses too, not just saying it, right? They're at Apple and, all that now. But the point that I'm making though is he was my first guest and I was his first guest. And then we teamed up and we had the worst titled podcast of all time, which is the Hyperconscious Podcast meets Conversations Change Lives podcast. And then 20 episodes in, we rebranded to go all in on Hyperconscious. And then I think after 600 or 700 or something, we ended up rebranding to Next Level University. Level up your life, love, health, and wealth. 1% improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free, Next Level University. And it's personal development, success, mindset, personal growth, self-improvement. It's how do you get a little bit better each and every day? And how do you, we're the male role models in our pocket that we never had growing up.
Okay, so you have two kind of coaching, right? One is for business owners and other one is for podcast. Yeah.
Kev's the podcast guy, I'm the business guy, but we both do both.
Okay. So can you be more specific, who do you help? What kind of business owners?
Man, it's everything from a 16-year-old named Micaiah who's starting a YouTube channel, all the way to someone who's in their 60s who's, a multimillionaire in New Zealand doing home staging, and they've been in business for 15 years. My ideal client, because there's your ideal client and then there's different iterations of it.
Ideal client.
Ideal client. Okay, my ideal client is a podcaster who's into personal development, who wants to grow and scale a podcast that's heart-driven, cares about their listener, who also wants to make it their full-time business and wants to reach their potential. So to me, I found my absolutely people and my absolutely not people. My absolutely people, and this took me so many years, my absolutely people are people who have high work ethic, high humility, they're coachable, and they want to reach their full potential. The people, there's two types of people I can't stand, and I'm just owning this. Number one is the spoiled brats of the world. These are the people that are very entitled, they want big rewards for minimal effort, basically. And they don't, whenever something's wrong, they think something's wrong with the world instead of with them. And then number two is bullies. I can't stand bullies, people who chop people down. I was late and I emailed you and I tried to be very respectful, and you were very respectful to me. So that meant a lot to me. If you were a bully, you would have made me feel bad. You would have guilted me or shamed me for being late. And I would have picked up on that. So thank you for being a respectful man. And I really appreciate it. But my absolutely person is who I focus on helping now. Whereas in the past, I used to try to help everyone, and that was an atrociously bad idea.
Yeah, I had similar experience.
Terrible idea. Don't bring the Trojan horse into the castle.
Yeah, exactly. But with those two kind of people you mentioned, I think nobody would like to even talk to them.
Unfortunately, that's not true, because they have a lot of people hoodwinked. They have a lot of people convinced that they are better than they really are. And they had me convinced too. Dude, in the past, I didn't understand that it was a lie. Some people are willing to lie in order to achieve, like, these are all real awards. Like some people are willing to just put fake ones up. Some people are lying through their teeth on the internet. I mean, it's really alarming.
Yeah, I just recall something. Okay, so do you know Ken McCarthy?
Maybe.
Okay. It was Ken McCarthy. I guess he was Ken McCarthy. Okay. So he's the founding father of internet marketing. Okay. And so years ago, he was looking for a guy to write a sales letter for him. So he hired a guy, give him 10 grand, $10,000, and that copywriter just copy pasted someone else's sales letter and just replace it with his product name. Yes, there are so many people like this, and even the most experienced, most smartest people in the world have to experience these kind of things.
I was naive, brother. I was young and I was naive, and the majority of people statistically are worse than they are coming off. Most people are trying to pretend they're better than they are. There are some people who are actually amazing behind the scenes. So who you are and what you are when no one's watching is what I'm looking for. I actually have a filter if you're curious. I know we got to jump in a minute here.
Okay.
My filter, I created this to protect myself, and I'll give this to you now. It's up here. It's called Unmedzai. I'm always sizing up. I created it. I'll explain. I call it an Unmedzai score. So you have a low Unmedzai score.
What's that?
So unstable, naive, manipulative, entitled, delusional, significance-driven, arrogant, and immature. So the moment I met you, I sized up your Unmedzai score. Because if you were an entitled, spoiled brat bully, you would have came at me. You would have been very upset with me. And that would have shown me that you're not actually grateful that I'm here. And that would have shown me, okay, if you're not grateful that I'm here, you're entitled to my time. And that's not someone I want to work with. So instead, you were very respectful and very humble and very kind. And that means a lot to me. So I basically created a filter now in my own head. I give you an Unmedzai score the moment I meet you, and I run in the other direction. If you were unkind to me and disrespectful that I was late, and after I apologized and sent you an email, I would not have done this interview, because I realize you can't help those people. They're just inflated self-worth, and they think they deserve things, because they were born with a certain last name or whatever.
I think every business people should do something like this. Instead of only having an idle client or idle customer, they should also have people they don't want to, serve.
Yeah. Agreed. You're absolutely people, and then you're absolutely not people. If you're for everyone, you're for no one, because I always say this, Tesla shouldn't sell energy drinks and Red Bull shouldn't sell cars. You can't do everything and be everything for everyone. I tried. It'll destroy you. So, brother, I do have to run, because I don't want to be disrespectful to my next meeting. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I will come back anytime.
Yeah, awesome. So
Awesome.
thank you so much for your time, and it was really nice talking with you.
Thank you.
Alan.
You as well.